Good afternoon, everyone. I thought I was gonna have to stand in front of the crowd here today, but luckily with the meeting owl capabilities, it's picking me up all the way back here. So thank you all for coming to the September educational event by the Hooksett Chamber of Commerce. My name is Tyler Halstead. I'm the president. Don Perkins here is the vice president. We try to put on at least one networking, one educational event every month for our constituents here. Big thank you to Mark from the Hooksett Library for hosting us in our first hybrid event. Once he showed me the meeting owl here, I ended up showing it to my bosses over at the Raleigh agency, and they decided that we needed to get one because we've got some sales meetings every Monday morning. We've got some guys up in Portland, Maine, and they used to have to drive down every Monday for the sales call. So I showed them this, and they're like, "That's the best, the best alternative there." But today, our speaker, Joanne Randall, the Hooksett Chamber member, and also owner of Leap Year Marketing Strategies. You're an educator and also a published author.
Correct.
A lot of accomplishments. So today we're going to be covering the 4 P's of marketing. These crucial components of marketing guide businesses to consider all aspects of their product or service before launch or during periods of evaluation. So without further ado, Joanne, I'll let you take the stage.
Thank you very much, Tyler, and welcome everybody online. Hopefully people are able to join us today. I always think it's funny, you know, I'm a doer. Like I've always got stuff, right? I always have stuff going on. I set goals. That's what I do for a living. I help people set goals. So I do that for myself and constantly have things going on. And every so often I'll be a speaker somewhere and they'll read off like a bio. And I'm like, wow, that person sounds amazing. It's that person. But just remember, it's over like a large span of time, you know, all that stuff has happened. So I'm very grateful to be here. Happy we could pull it together. I know things have been kind of crazy with scheduling, but one of the things that we want to talk about today is what's known as the 4 P's of marketing. And I want to make sure, first of all, let me give you a little bit of intro of myself, just so you know, because it's important that you understand that your speaker has the credentials to be able to stand up and talk about something. And I'm not just any person off the sidewalk talking. So I've owned a couple of marketing companies over the last 10 or 12 years. I'm an adjunct professor of marketing and business for NHTI, as well as Great Bay Community College and previously New England College. I run a business consulting firm and have a number of clients, anywhere from someone who has invented something and they're trying to research the market to see if it's viable, all the way up to clients who've been in business for 20 plus years, who are working on different things, obviously, and everyone in between. I'm sole proprietors, partnerships, husband-wife family businesses, more than 2 or 3 of those, actually. They're pretty common. And I just love working with people. And when someone asks me, what do you do? Really, we provide opportunity for people. We sit down with people, find out where they're at, find out where they'd like to go, and then try to help them come up with the steps to get where they want to go. So one of the things that I want to make sure, let me just bring up my slides on my own. You can go ahead and slide that over. Is we're talking about marketing today, okay? And the idea is, when people come to me, especially for help, they think they need help with marketing. They come to me and say, I have this product or the service. I need to know how to get customers to buy it, which is true. However, they go about it backwards. What they really want to do is start with a business strategy, which includes a mission statement, vision statement, core values. Those are very important because they direct the rest of your activity. And once you have your strategy in place, then you can set goals for your business. And once your goals for your business are set, then you can start thinking about marketing. Because the marketing goals, objectives, tactics that you set in your marketing plan are 100% based on the strategy for the business as a whole. So our role as a marketer, we identify who our target market is, what they need, especially. Of course, that's what we're in business for, is to facilitate giving people what they need, make them happy through the exchange, right? And then have them stay with us over time, if that's a possibility. So that's what we want to do. We cannot get here, though, until we've gone through the strategy. Then we can apply our efforts to marketing. If you wouldn't mind going to the next screen for me. So today, we're going to be talking about the 4 Ps of marketing. There are 3 more Ps of marketing that relate specifically to service marketing, and we'll cover those also. So if you ever hear from a marketing course, or sit in on a webinar, they talk about the 4 Ps of marketing. This is what's known as the marketing mix. These contain all the pieces that you need to consider and make decisions on to market your business, okay? As you can see right here, this is actually down here. It's not at the top where most people think it is. It's down here at the bottom. So we talked about the strategy, which includes mission statement, vision statement, core values. A company will then do an analysis, market analysis and internal analysis and an external analysis. So they'll do a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, which is an internal analysis of their company. OT stands for opportunities and threats. That's an external scan of all the outside environments that you need to think about as you put your business together. And then you come up with a strategy, corporate strategy. Then and only then do we start talking about marketing strategy. So as I mentioned, people come to me and say, I need help with this, when in reality, they have not gone through the first few steps. So you can guess that that's what, what you want to do, but in reality, they have to go back.
You got 1 second here.
Yeah,
Just
take your
occurred
time.
to me. We don't have any audience yet, but it occurred to me that we should actually be seeing. this.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
So, yeah, let me just make sure we're all set up here. Let me just do that, just in case.
All
There
set.
we go.
Okay.
Sorry.
So that's all right, it's quite all right. So we're gonna talk about the 4 Ps of marketing today, and this information, you can switch to the next one if you want. This information is crucial because it forces you to think through the myriad of things that are involved in setting up a strategy for business and then strategy for your marketing. So the first P stands for product. And I'll talk about service in a minute because many of us are in the service industry. But the 4 Ps are product, price, promotion, and place. We'll go through each of those. Product seems pretty straightforward. What is it that you sell? Your product or your service? And so as you're putting together your marketing plan, sure, what do you sell? Oh, I sell insurance, or I sell, I sell marketing services, I sell business consulting, I sell whatever it is. As you're putting together the 4 Ps of your marketing mix and formulating a marketing plan, it requires you, your plan will require you to write out as many details as you can about your product. You have to understand everything about your product. What is it? Is it a raw material? Is it an organizational good like copiers and fax machines? Is it equipment? You also have to know, based on what it's made of, what is the quality of this product? Are you purposely making something that is of lesser quality materials so that the price is lower? So you have to identify everything you can possibly pull together as a description of your product. Also, by the way, your product includes packaging. So people will say that, everyone has different opinions, but people say sometimes that packaging should be part of like your distribution discussion. But in reality, I think that your packaging is part of your product. An example of that is, I don't know if you've received any Amazon boxes lately, but they have, yes, I know, me too. That was kind of tongue in cheek, the question. But they use their packaging sometimes in promotion. It's part of their product. They've thought it through. The last box I received, so the last envelope I received had advertising for the new Amazon Prime show that they have out. The last box I received had a funny joke on the outside that said, this also doubles as a last minute diorama. For parents, I got a chuckle out of it. My kid didn't even know what it meant. But anyway, so the packaging you use to put your thing together and ship, in my opinion, goes under your product. So you really have to think about those things. You want to put this down on paper so that you're clear. All right, that's really the exercise here. Another thing is if this is not a new product and you're trying to put together some sort of marketing plan for it, one thing you'll have to consider is product life cycle. Have you guys ever heard of that terminology before, product life cycle? So where is it in its life cycle? An example is I said fax machine earlier, fax machine. So there's an introduction into the market with a new product. There's a growth phase. Then you have maturity where it kind of flattens out and then a decline. And then it's gone. Okay, so that is the life cycle. Depending on, you know, how long your product has been out there, it's important to identify where it is in this life cycle because it will affect other things. For example, if your product is in the maturity or decline phase, that's going to affect your pricing. It's going to affect your inventory. It's going to affect a lot of other things. So identifying where it is in the life cycle is really important. I won't get into all the life cycle stages, but I do want to mention here that if you're like myself and your product is a service, there are 3 more P's that we'll cover. I'll get into them a little bit later, but as it's interesting that when you deliver your service, you're distributing your product at the exact same time. So as we get into some of the discussions about distribution, which means like, you know, where do people go to get the product? When you perform the service, you are distributing your product. So there are a couple of other considerations to take into things to take into consideration. So what I want to leave you with on that is that your product actually isn't a commodity. Even if you have a product, I want you to think about this for a second. Your product is what people get when they make that exchange with you, when they buy something for you in exchange for something of value to them. So for example, when you hire a real estate agent, you're getting a service, you're not buying a house. You're getting a smooth transaction. You're getting expertise to make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. That's really what people are paying for. Yes, you end up with a house at the end, but the real estate agent isn't building a house. They're facilitating the transaction. So when you pay for the services of a real estate agent, you're actually paying for a smooth transaction. So I just want to make sure that you think through if you're doing a service, that the transaction and what people are getting from you is actually a product. All right, a couple things about services. They're intangible. So that can be kind of hard, right? People can't test them out. You can't test a haircut. It doesn't work that way. Education, repairs, consulting even. So it can be a little tough to get people to buy into something if you have a service. This is when branding is really important because you want to make sure people understand your expertise, the quality that they're getting, you're clear on what they're getting in that exchange, okay? Of course, tangible products are stuff that you can test out, try, you can see it. There's something, by the way, called a good services continuum, which means that when you offer a service, consider giving a tangible something at the same time because it represents the quality of the service that you've offered. For example, when I go in and get my oil changed on my car, I bring my car in, they put it up on the pneumatic, and I go in and I sit down. What does the little room look like that I sit down in? Usually, sometimes. What has been your experience?
A blank waiting room.
Blank waiting room, maybe smells like oil. Coffee's been there a while, if there is any.
5-year-old magazines.
5-year-old magazines, fair enough, right? So, so if I were to walk in and I sat down and there's fresh coffee, or it smells like it just got brewed, right, in the last half an hour, the seats are clean, there's no trash on the floor, the restroom is right there, maybe there's a TV on, and I see all this environment that they're providing, it indicates to me as a consumer what they're doing in my car. That makes sense. So it's a tangible representation of the quality that I'm getting for the service. So if you offer a service, consider having something tangible. It's like getting a ticket to a concert. Your ticket represents your experience, right? Okay, so I just wanted to throw those things in there for you. Any questions about product? So you just want to
that at the beginning,
I'm sorry?
your first meeting with them, or at the end, when you're giving them the end?
I did miss the first part of your question.
Are you giving them that tangible thing when you first meet with them, or?
It's a good question. It will really depend. The place I go to get my haircut, when I walk in, one of the, there's many. Right, I walk in and they check me in, they say, oh, would you like a cup of coffee? While you wait, I'm all set, I sit down, there's a water cooler right there. After I leave, they say, would you like to take a cup of coffee with you? And that's not the only thing that they said, can I do this? Can I do, they offer like tangible services, like a cup of coffee. Glass of wine, sometimes they offer me, sometimes there's food, like it's a great place to get my hair cut. Also, by the way, I know, well, I'll tell you who it is after. So it, depending on your service, it might be before, during, after, a combination of all of those things. Does that answer your question? It would depend, but we can give more examples later if you want to go back to that. All right, you can go ahead and go to the next one. Price. I don't know why, but this is my favorite category for these. It is so complex. So you not only do you, when you're putting together your marketing mix, not only do you consider your pricing structure, but you also have a pricing strategy. Remember we talked about life cycle of a product earlier? So your pricing strategy is set up in advance. Let's say you're going to introduce a new product to the market. You have your pricing structure and your strategy planned out before it even hits the market. So you say, okay, I don't know exactly when it's going to hit maturity in the life cycle, but when it does, this is what my pricing structure is going to look like. You know ahead of time. There are some pricing strategies that are out there that you could consider, of course, depending on your product or service. There's something called premium pricing, no surprise, high end, like Porsche, also razors like Gillette is considered premium. I don't buy Gillette razors. They're probably very expensive though. They're constantly used as an example of premium pricing. There's something called penetration pricing, which is when a new product comes into the market artificially low in order to gain a large market share and scare away competitors. Because if the price is low and the margin is paper thin, a competitor is going to say, not worth my time. So they don't come in, then you, after you run that strategy, you're able to raise your price. Can't stay at that price, but it's a way to get sort of mass market your new product. Another one's called economy pricing, no frills pricing. We've seen all that. There's one also that's used called the skimming strategy. When you launch a product at a really high price, low promotional level, part of the reason people will do that is because if the product has required a lot of research and effort and marketing expenses prior to the product coming out, you have to recover that. So if there are no competitors out there, you for a period of time can enter something into the market at a higher price and then bring it back down. So there's lots of different strategies that you can consider. And those are just a few. One of the things I love talking about is psychological factors in pricing. The quick story. Many years ago, probably 50 years ago, let's just say it was 50 years ago, there were two vodka companies. Mike, I may have shared this story with you. There were two vodka companies and they were similar, very similar. In fact, you couldn't really tell the difference between the two. The price was the same. The packaging was very similar. They were both in the same region of the country that they came from. So for years, everyone just bought one or the other, no loyalty to the brand or whatever. And once one company A said, if we lower our price by a little, people are going to buy ours because there's no difference. People don't see a difference. If it's cheaper, there's no difference. People will shop by price. So company A lowered their price. And initially, some people did start buying. So does anyone want to guess what company B did? Increase their price. They increased their price. Didn't change the product, but what happened in the mind of the consumer? What did they think?
This is premium.
This is better. This is a better quality. Why do our brains do that? I don't know, but they just do. It's a working assumption that we have. If something costs more, we want to justify our belief in the quality. We say, well, it must be better. Must be. Looks the same. I can't tell that by looking at the bottle if one vodka is different from another. It looks like water. How would I know? Right? So if the price is higher, the assumption is it's a better quality. So that is one psychological strategy in pricing, is to price yourself at a better quality price than a competitor. But then your branding has to match, right? You have to market yourself as a higher quality product. There's another thing called bundling. Does anyone want to guess what that looks like? Pretty simple. Have you ever been through McDonald's drive-through? I live there. I hate to admit it, but I have teenagers, so my very first job was McDonald's, and I actually worked at McDonald's when value meals came out. That's how long ago that was. They were not always a thing. They were not always a thing. So they decided that bundling items together and still covering the product cost by a certain margin, encourage people to purchase it. They really feel like they're getting a value. It may only be a small difference, but their margins are so high that they can afford it. They make up for it in volume. Okay, so bundling is a psychological strategy that is used quite often. Another one is called the odd pricing strategy. That's when retailers especially will end pricing in like 5s and 7s and 9s instead of like $14. You know, it's $13.97 at Walmart. So what do you think when you see that? When you see that $13.97? First of all, you don't think $14. I know you don't. You can say you do, but I don't believe you. You think $13.97, or you might even think 13. But what do you think about when you see that, just that price, $13.97?
You think you're getting a better deal.
You do. It almost appears as though it's already been discounted once. Like it's already been marked down once. It's an odd number. Right? Doesn't that give you the impression that something had already been marked down once? Not true. It's not true. It's a psychological pricing strategy. Okay. Sometimes it is because something's been marked down, but they do that on purpose to give you the impression that it's already been marked down. Sounds less expensive. And then of course, there's another pricing strategy called prestige pricing, which talked a little bit about increasing pricing to match your brand, but high price indicates high quality or value to the consumer. Okay, any questions on those? Now you want to set pricing structure and strategy based on objectives, right? So you've got your overall company strategy, your overall company goals. You think about objectives that you want to reach. What are we trying to accomplish with our pricing? Of course, first of all, we need to make money. So one of your objectives for your pricing strategy would be profit. Depending on what you're trying to do, could be short-term, long-term, hopefully long-term, sustainable profit. Another one that companies will use is pricing to achieve a target return on investment, depending on the product. They're trying to get their money back to a certain level. Another objective could be increasing market share. So your pricing strategy could help you gain market share, or could place you in a better spot with your competition. So knowing what your objectives are with your pricing strategy will help you figure out what price to use. Okay, any questions on price? Oh, I just want to say one more thing. I'm glad I looked up. So price sensitivity is also something, have you ever heard of price elasticity? And have taken economics lately? So elasticity is the measure, it's like a sensitivity scale. If there's a small increase in price, how sensitive are people to that change in price? If there's a small change in price, there's no change, then it's not, it's inelastic. Okay. So knowing your product or your service, if you were to increase your price, would that lose customers for you? Okay, that's something to consider. All right. I think that's good on price. Any questions on price? I love talking about price. I don't know why, I just do. All right, so yes, place. Place refers to distribution. Okay, distribution, your channel of distribution is the total combination of all the entities that have to be combined in a chain in order for the product to get from its original form all the way to the end customer. And I would also include returns. in that. Distribution includes returns. I have a client who has recently invented and has a prototype of a new dog collar, which I think is really kind of cool. It's saltwater resistant, so if you're on a boat with dogs, frequently you have to buy a lot of dog collars because they just disintegrate from the salt water. So anyway, we were talking about distribution, and she has her basement set up. So her basement is her distribution center. She gets her prototypes of her product. And I said, you can't just show up and start packaging. You have to set it up like a production line. Imagine as if it were a factory. In each section of your table is a different department. Think through all the materials you need, the steps you have to take, because at some point you're going to have a distribution area that's not going to be in the basement of your house. And you're just going to take your model, pick it up, go to your warehouse, wherever it is, and put it down, and then spread it out. So she's done that. And at the end, she's got a special area for returns because people return stuff, right? So you've got some considerations that you want to make for your distribution channel. Of course, if you are offering a service, you are the distribution channel. You cut hair, you're the distribution channel. You're it. There's a lot of discussion in business world about how to make things scalable. You know, have a nice system down in your business and you want to make it scalable so many people can do what you want with your process. That's also part of distribution. But it basically goes back to, where do people find the product? How do they purchase the product online, in person? How do they get it home? Is it delivered? And then of course, we mentioned returns already, okay? The thing about some of the things that you want to consider with distribution channel is coverage. So if you do purchase, like if you're a reseller, for example, you're buying something and then reselling it. Are you being, see, what's the word I'm looking for? Okay, let me give you some examples. You have something called mass distribution, okay? Something like soft drinks. They don't have to be real specific about where they put stuff. You go in any gas station, any grocery store, Coca-Cola's on the shelf. That's mass distribution. It's also called intensive distribution. There's another option called selective distribution. Things sold through independent contractors, for example. Then you have exclusive distribution. So one seller or distributor by geographic area. And one of examples that is like a Mercedes, Rolex, usually by reserved for very high quality, high price point items. So how the customer gets the final product is your coverage. How wide do you want to spread your distribution? That's a consideration in distribution. Control. So the more people you have in the process of getting the product to the customer, the less control you have. You're reselling, for example, I have a woman who's selling clothing products or whatever, and she was doing a lot of the distribution herself, but then she hired it out to somebody. And then she was disappointed if the person wasn't handling it the way that she would have handled it had she sent it out herself. And I said, well, then you've lost a portion of the control of your distribution channel. That's part of the risk of pulling other people in the distribution. So coverage, control, cost, the closer you are to the manufacturer and the customer, the less your distribution costs. That's just something else to consider. And then flexibility is another thing about to think about with distribution, sorry. So as a company that is a, like a wholesaler, for example, when they're choosing their distribution channel partners, all the people in the chain that get everything from point A to point Z, one of the things they have to think about is flexibility. So when COVID happened, things got really jammed up, okay? And the people that were able to still provide products that were needed were fortunate enough to belong to a flexible distribution channel. They were able to say, okay, this isn't working, so we're going to do this instead. Like they already had a plan. They were flexible. Just in case this doesn't work, we're going to do it this way. And an example, as I know a woman a long time ago, she owned dry cleaners. She owned probably 4 or 5 different locations of a dry cleaner business. And she went to a workshop where they talked about having an emergency plan for distribution. So she went and she thought, geez, what if my What if my business burned down? What would I do? So she wrote out a plan. She wrote out an entire plan. If this business, this particular location burned down, then we're doing this. She created her own flexibility within her distribution channel to make sure that things were still distributed properly. So she created this plan. So if this breaks down, this is what we're doing. Guess what happened? They had a fire. But they were able to pivot. They had a plan already. So she created her own flexibility. But when you're setting up a distribution channel, if you're not in control of each of those chains, the people that you work with, you should be clear with them, and they should be clear with you what kind of flexibility they have in case something happens, because things happen, right? I think that's all I have to say about place. Let's skip to promotion. Because promotion is what people think marketing is. Promotion's only one P in the 4 P. Promotion is, or so one of the things that's a little frustrating for me about marketing in general is that many terms sound alike. For me, it's like being in an economics class. Everything sounds the same. So we have the 4 Ps. One of the Ps is promotion. Within promotion is something called promotional mix. Okay, promotional mix is how you allocate your resources to 5 primary elements. And I'm going to tell you what those are. So your mix is how you allocate your budget and other resources among 5 primary elements. One is advertising. Advertising is basically paid used to identify the company brand and usually meant to reach a large number of people. And that's what a lot of people think of as promotion, marketing, advertising. So advertising is paid. The second element that you may want to include in a promotional mix is public relations or publicity. Public relations, most people know that as it's geared toward a specific group of people, usually in the media. You see press conferences and press releases, that sort of thing. That could be part of your promotional mix. You know, press conferences are not always negative. I know that's what we see them as, you know, so-and-so's coming to speak to the group, you know, but you can set up press conferences and do press releases to promote your business. Many times those types of things in the promotional mix are talking about the company itself, not so much the brand, but you might want to do a press release about all the volunteer hours all your employees have put together in the community over the last year. You might want to do a press release about something like that. It's about the company and maybe the culture versus promotional advertising. It's not really about branding, but it does tell you a little bit about the culture of the company, which in truth is part of your branding. So we've covered advertising, public relations, or publicity. The next potential part of your marketing mix is, promotional mix. See, it is confusing even for me, is sales promotion. Okay, so sales promotion, this is what most people think of as promotion, right? It's generally short-term. It creates incentives for people to buy, to try an item maybe for the first time and create like immediate sales. So sales promotion is a promotion. Go to the store, they do some bundling, buy 3, get 1 free. Today only, that's a mix of bundling and sales promotion, right? That's what most people see. The next one is direct marketing, lovely direct marketing. That's usually what we get from text messages from companies through mailers. Thank goodness election day is over. That's all I have to say about that. I have to tell a quick funny story. Do I have time? I do. So I was in my marketing class talking to students about direct marketing and saying what a pain in the neck it is sometimes, personally, that's my personal opinion. And so I said, so I'm going to gather all the mailing pieces I get for 2 or 3 days from my house, and I'm going to bring them into class on Tuesday. So I just left this pile on, it was like right on my counter, and grabbed them, walked into class, I'm like, all right, let's take a look at these. Going, yeah, flip the book, and then I pulled up the Hooksett Chamber of Direct Mailer about this workshop. I said, okay, this one is good. This one is very effective. Of course, they laugh, but I'm like, but it's only effective if the person receiving it needs the information. Sometimes those political ads are effective if that's the information that person needs. I don't get heavily involved in politics anymore, so they're not effective for me, but some people they are. So that's direct marketing. And then the last part of your promotional mix that you want to think about including is personal selling. Okay, that's personal one way. It's called direct contact with the customer. It's pretty effective because your customer gets to ask questions directly to the salesperson, where if they see a promotion or an advertisement, they have questions, they have to follow up. But with direct sales, personal selling, it's very effective. The salesperson can also make a really great lasting impression on the customer, and that might get them to come back as a long-term customer. So I don't recommend using all 5 of those elements. I'll just summarize them one more time for you. There's advertising, public relations, sales promotion, direct marketing, and personal selling. Those are the 5 primary elements of the promotional mix. I don't recommend using all 5 all the time, because if something important comes up and you really want to catch people's attention, make a splash, if you've already used up all the excitement on a regular, people are just going to stop listening. So in your promotional mix, you want to put together something that's going to make sense and reserve a couple of those, one of those or whatever, for specific purposes. Okay. Let's see. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
How has social media and content creation really changed the promotional landscape, I guess, since I feel like a lot of, whether it's products or services are now being, pitched on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be, because they have your information, they're tailoring these advertisements to you, or, if I look at the meeting owl, suddenly I'm getting it everywhere, right?
That'll
So-
be on your on later.
Right.
Sure.
So how has social media and content creation like that really changed promotional landscape?
Well, it's really the medium is different. Obviously, it's online. They call social media interruption marketing because people want to get interrupted. I'm on Facebook and I'm like, I want to not be doing my work. I want to be on Facebook. So they know that, so they will put up advertising and promotions for me. You're combating a number of things. We'll just use Facebook as an example. Not only can people, I shouldn't say just people, not only can businesses promote posts that they have to specific groups of people, then they also have advertising. You can do a full-fledged advertising campaign. But also on top of that, you have Facebook suggesting things to you that no one has even paid for, right? Based on your own activity, the people you're connected with, the businesses you follow, it may say this page is suggested for you. So it's, I don't know, do you think it's a little creepy? Sometimes it can be, but also very effective. I'm not gonna lie, I buy a lot of things on Facebook. Why? Because they know what I need, because I'm on there. It's actually really effective for me. I just happen, and I'm like the average person, so I imagine a lot of people feel that way. I'm not really an online shopper, but if I see something like, oh, that would be great, that would solve my problem. They know that because they know everything about me, right? So it's helpful for me anyway. Is it weird? Yeah, but we're used to it now. You don't have to be on Facebook. I mean, it's kind of like the agreement that you make with Facebook. If you're on there, you're going to get your personal information and they track you, right? But, as a business, you can use that to your advantage to run promotions. You could do public service announcements and, basically a press release you could do on social media, but in combination with other mediums too as well. So for example, Constant Contact or some other email marketing platform. One of the things that I used to recommend to clients is we used to do content marketing for clients. So we would tell people, here's how it works. We write a blog, or you write a blog. We optimize it for search, we have links, et cetera, et cetera. Then we write an email piece to your customers or whichever group, and we include the link from the blog. We're trying to drive people back to their website. That's what we're trying to do. So we will fill the email, not completely, but a few links here and there that are back to the website, trying to drive website traffic. Then once that's done, we take the link for the email and go on social media, give a little header intro of what is in the email, and then post the link for the email, or post the link for the blog. So it ties in as a part of a mix for content, and they all work very well together. Individually, they work well, but when you use them together and you're intentional about it, it's very effective, very effective. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay, yeah. So I think we can go on to the, yeah, so we can go. So I just want to cover real quick. We talked about the 4 Ps, okay? The 3 additional Ps for marketing a service. People, remember I told you when you offer the service, you are the product, you are the distribution channel. So identifying the people or the types of people in your business who are going to be delivering the service, very important as part of your marketing mix. The process by which the service is delivered. Okay, the process by which the service is delivered. So Tyler sells insurance. So what is his process? He may or may not have it written down, but I bet he knows it by heart. I meet someone that looks like this. We go through this process. We get to this point, then we get to this point, then we get to this point. We wrap up paperwork and then I follow up. He has a process. So if you offer a service, it's important to clearly think through what your process is because you are the product. If you're not clear and you look like, what am I doing? People are like, am I really paying for the quality? So it's a reflection of the quality of the service that you're giving. And then we mentioned earlier physical evidence. So physical evidence of a service is very important. Think through those things that you can give somebody to walk away. Here's a business card. This is an example of physical evidence, right? Brochures, leave behinds, anything like that. Consider what types of physical evidence you want to leave with people or give to people through the service that will help them, grasp the quality of the service that they're receiving from you, okay? So product, price, place, promotion, then people, process, physical evidence, a tongue twister there. So planning, remember we talked about strategic planning and then we work our way down to the marketing plan. Planning removes the torture of decision making under pressure. Going through the exercise of completely doing a real business plan and a real marketing plan takes away the pressure of decision making under pressure. It's torture if you have to make a very important decision about your business and you only have a few minutes. Like, that's not fair. But if you try to think through all those possible considerations that might occur, your business burning down or whatever, if you've gone through all those thought processes in advance, when things come up, you've pre-made a lot of decisions. It takes that pressure off of you. You look like a pro because you are a pro. Planning also saves a lot of resources, reduces error, saves time, money, puts you and your team on the same page before you even begin. Everyone knows exactly what's about to happen. So just a reminder, marketing is a subset of strategic planning and very important once you've got through your strategic planning to put together a marketing plan. It's awesome. I love it. Any questions? Covered a lot, and actually there's so much more that we could have talked about today, but I wanted to make sure that we covered some of the basic concepts there. So I'm going to see how the 4 Ps kind of work together. Okay. Any questions for me?
Because what's been your biggest struggle since you do consulting as well, working with businesses that, let's go for the product side of it. Some of the businesses and how they are able to determine the best strategies for them when it comes to the marketing side of it. What's been some big obstacles that they
For them, obstacles that they're facing. So have any of you read the book, The E-Myth? E-Myth Revisited.
Michael German.
I live by that book. All right, so the problem, I 100%, 110% agree with this book. The reason businesses go out of business is because they have not set up a process that runs itself. People run the process runs the business, 100%. So what I see is owners acting as managers and as technicians, if you remember that from the book. To 3 mindsets in business. So you have a plumber, right? I'll just use a real plumber. I have an electrician, okay? Great guy, super qualified, really smart, hard worker. I'm excited for this guy, except he's a technician, so he's the one that does the work. So he's gonna end up hiring some people to work with him. Now he's a technician and a manager. And then he comes to me and says, I really want to grow my business. So you want to be an owner, real owner, and a manager and a technician all at the same time. Do you know what's going to happen? You're always going to be a technician. So what he needs to do and he's working on is he's setting up policies. The book uses McDonald's as a perfect example of how they write every single detail out of every step of every process so that anybody can follow it. And because anybody can follow it, you can hire completely unskilled people, which is what McDonald's does. They hire people who don't need any particular skill other than to be able to follow directions. So they show up, they show them the expectations of the job. This is how you do everything. This is how you cook French fries, step by step by step. This is how you check it after. This is what we do at closing. This is how we open. Everything is on a list. So you're able to hire people who are generally unskilled, which saves you a lot of money. He actually recommends hiring people without experience. Because if you bring in someone, a manager, for example, with experience, they're going to try to run your process from their experience, and they'll try to, doesn't work that way. So what I find, Tyler, is that people have not thought through the full process of each step of their business, whether it's product or service, and they continue to get pulled in as a technician. And then they say, oh, I can't get anything done. I need to hire someone to help me. But I can't afford someone who has the experience I do. You're correct. You can't. So you need to set your system up to run itself so that you can hire anybody to do that job so you can step out and then eventually step out again. That's really what you want to do. And it's not too late if someone has already started a business to look at it with fresh eyes and say, all right, we're going to start this over from scratch. How should it be run based on the processes? Another client I have, I love working with these people, husband and wife, they own a travel agency. And they've owned it for over 10 years. And the guy that owned it before owned it for like another 10 years. So it's been around a long time. And they managed to live through COVID. Like, I don't know how they did it. They managed it. Okay. They stayed in business. And Michael Gerber says, when that happens, it's almost the worst case scenario. Because if they're not set up to start over, they don't know how to start over, they're just going to try to pick up where they left off, and they're just going to drown. Like, you can't create this whole customer base from nothing in a very short period of time. So anyway, I'm working with them to say, all right, where do you want to, he said, we have a 15-year plan to retire. And I said, all right, that's great. You're not going to get there based on what you're doing right now. He's like, well, I need more customers. No, you need to stop being the technician in your business so that you can step back and let them set up the processes so they can run so that you can retire. Truthfully, if he started over right now with the correct processes in place, it might take him a year to get it set up. He could probably retire in 5 years because then he could sell his business. Who wants to buy a business that has no systems? Nobody. It's like buying a house that needs $100,000 worth of work. Sure, it's cheap, but who wants to do all that work? Nobody, unless that's your job, right? It's the same thing with the business. So the processes are in place. You know, sometimes they're not perfect, but at least there's the foundation there. This is how we do things. This is how we find new customers. This is how we service, you know, tours. This is how we pick our tours. This is how we pick the people to give the tours. Like, they have it on paper. If I walked in looking for a business to buy, I'd be like, this is where the turnkey term comes in. All I have to do is turn it on and the engine will run. Okay, worth the extra money. I don't have to do the work. I can start making money tomorrow. So that's really what I see a lot, is people looking at it upside down. And by the way, great book. Recommend everybody read it. It's the E-Myth or E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber. Great book. And there are a lot of other good books out there too. There's another one called EOS. What the heck is EOS? It's the Entrepreneur Operating System. It's another way of looking at it, setting up systems. It's all about systems, both of those books. Excellent reads. If you're into that kind of stuff, if you're kind of like an organizational mind. So, any other questions?
Friday night reading.
Yeah, not late night, lots of wine reading. It's more like 6 a.m. Monday morning when you're refreshed. Okay, I can focus for an hour. What does this guy have to say? Actually, I found listening to the books are much more effective for me. And I buy that hard copy. So if I have to go back, I can go back and look. Both good, a lot of good books out there. There's another good book out there called Will It Fly? It's a great book for people who have an idea of starting a business, but they're not sure if there's a market for it. He goes through a lot of, Pat something, I can't think of it, but anyway, he goes through a lot of ways people can test their ideas to see if there's a market for it or how to create a market for it. It's another good book. Lots of them out there. All right, any other questions? Those are great questions.
That was a great response. Thank you. The
Cool.
process piece, right? It's not just
all around.
marketing. Every business can
Every
benefit.
Yeah. McDonald's.
And that's what I'm getting. It's like, it takes a folder and you put it in. I said, I'm not going to scale on folders,
No, but putting it down somewhere is effective.
but he's thinking like
Yeah.
all of our clients, just.
Yeah.
put in a folder.
Well, you can do it electronically as
And I'm
well, you know what I mean? Just having the information available, ready to go. And job descriptions is another thing too that fits in there, but those are separate from engagement contracts with employees. And he also mentions that book table of organization, even if it's just you do president, vice president of operations, vice president of marketing, vice president of finance. Then you have blah, 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 and you've got them all, and guess what? It's you, all the way down. And when you do that, you think, yeah, that's a lot that I do or try to do. So then you build it from the ground up with a process in this area, build that process in this area. So it's a lot of work, but it's an investment.
I was actually watching, a YouTube video, of somebody that is a trainer for ClickUp.
Mhm.
And she actually explained it, instead of using, you still have your organization chart. But when you're thinking about all your processes that you put into ClickUp or any other type of software like that, is, especially if you're a single person in your business, is to think about it through the customer journey.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't know that they're communicating with every single department in your company. It's just you.
Right.
So just use your customer journey set of processes.
That's a good perspective for sure, because they're the ones who are paying you to do the work. It's nice if you took a moment to look at it through their perspective. Yeah, good point. That's awesome. Any other questions? I have a great list of books that I've read, so if anyone wants more to read, I can help you out on that.
Well, we've got some great information. I got
Yeah.
a couple things to add to my Audible wish list. Appreciate everyone for showing up and Joanne for the great presentation.
I'll be going upstairs and looking for books on the shelf.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely, I would do the E-Myth first. EOS is a little more complex and generally is meant for larger companies, although many of the principles can be applied to a smaller business. And they're similar. All right, well, thank you for that.